Judge orders arrest of Jay-Z after George's testimony. Kash Patel names Jay-Z in shocking proof. The courtroom was electric. Day one of what the media had dubbed the trial of the century had begun in the federal courthouse in Manhattan. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but that didn't stop the massive crowds outside, or the global media frenzy waiting for every update. At the center of it all, Sean "Diddy" Combs, flanked by a wall of lawyers and bodyguards, wearing a $1,000 suit and an unreadable expression. But it wasn't just Diddy that had the world watching. The name on everyone's lips was George Clooney. Clooney, known not only as a Hollywood icon, but also as a diplomat and humanitarian, had agreed to testify. What no one had expected was the intensity of what he was about to reveal. The courtroom fell silent when he took the stand. He wore no smile. His usually charming face was set in grim determination. "This isn't about celebrity gossip," George began. "This is about power-abused lives destroyed and silence paid for in blood." Gasps echoed across the courtroom. He recounted how he first crossed paths with Diddy at a Hamptons party in 2013. Diddy had said something that stuck with him: "Rap won't change the world, politics will, and you, George, are my ticket." At first, Clooney thought it was drunken bravado, but it quickly became clear Diddy meant every word. Over the next year, Clooney was invited to exclusive parties, white parties as they were called, where politicians, billionaires, entertainers, and shadowy figures mingled behind the veil of luxury. They weren't parties, they were auditions for corruption, George said. If you were there, you were seen, and if you were seen, you were bound. Then came the turning point. Diddy began applying pressure. Subtle at first hints about introductions to powerful figures, vague talk about mutual opportunities, but it escalated. One day, Amal Clooney, George's wife, a renowned international human rights lawyer, received a package. Inside was a photo of their twins, Ella and Alexander, playing at their school's courtyard. No message, just a photo. George paused as he recalled the moment. "I knew then. This wasn't just ambition, this was war." He described how Amal was later attacked at an event in Paris by none other than Jay-Z. The assault happened in a private room, with George forced to watch, held at bay by security loyal, not to the law, but to a darker force. Amal tried to take legal action, but within 24 hours she withdrew the complaint. Publicly, she claimed it was a misunderstanding under the influence. Privately, they received an email: "One more word and your children disappear for good." The courtroom was stunned. The judge called for a recess. Reporters exploded out of the building phones, lighting up with headlines. Clooney remained seated, shoulders heavy. Across the courtroom, Diddy smirked. That was the moment Kash Patel, special counsel for the DOJ, stood and addressed the room. "This trial isn't just about Diddy," he said. "It's about a system of abuse that has run unchecked for too long, and it ends here." Clooney had more. He had videos, emails, recordings, but that was for another day. Today the world heard the opening crack in a wall of silence that had taken decades to build. Justice, long silenced, had finally found its voice. The courtroom remained electric in the days following George Clooney's shocking testimony. The internet buzzed with headlines dissecting every word he had uttered. But inside the court the tone was far more grim. Kash Patel, the special counsel, had promised a system of abuse would be exposed. And now the next wave of truth was coming through encrypted audio and a dead man's whisper. Patel stood and introduced the evidence. "Your Honor, we have acquired an audio file from a highly protected source. It is a recording from a confessional booth, legally obtained, provided by the late Father Marcel, formerly of St. Ignatius Church. The priest, shortly after submitting this encrypted file to the FBI, was found dead in his rectory. The autopsy revealed poisoning." Gasps again swept the courtroom. Clooney's face was pale. He had heard rumors of Father Marcel's fate, but now it was official. The judge allowed the recording to be played. A low hum filled the room as the playback began. The voice was unmistakably Diddy's. "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I see the devil when I sleep, but I am the devil when I wake. A pause. I did things, not because I had to, because I could. And they let me. I touched power with my bare hands, and nobody stopped me, not even when I broke them. He chuckled in the recording, a cold, joyless sound. George thinks he's above it, but I know his secrets now. Jay made sure. Amal's got her scars, but that's the price of silence. We have their kids in our grip. They'll never cross me. The courtroom was ice. Kash Patel turned to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, this wasn't a mistake. This was an empire, a machine that used fear control and blackmail to silence the righteous. He then introduced testimony from Father Marcel's private journal written before his death. Patel read aloud, "He came often, Diddy, confessed often, not to cleanse his soul, but to boast, to offload the weight of secrets too heavy for one man. He confessed things no God would forgive, but I recorded only the last. Because he was unraveling, he was scared, he feared George, he feared exposure." Then came the chilling detail: the priest had delivered a flash drive to an intermediary who had passed it to the FBI. On it, video files and documents implicating several known figures. Included was a logbook with initials linked to major corporations, Senate offices, and entertainment conglomerates. It would later become known as the Marcel Ledger. Meanwhile, George Clooney was asked to return to the stand. "Do you confirm that your children went missing for 15 hours on March 12, 2015? George nodded. "Yes, they vanished without trace, no ransom, just silence. They came back, unharmed. But in front of our house was a black van with no license plate. Amal found a note inside our mailbox the next morning. It read, 'Obedience is survival.' Why didn't you go public then?" George closed his eyes. "Because the price wasn't mine alone to pay." Then Kash Patel dropped the next bombshell. "We have recovered a video file from George Clooney's home vault. It shows Amal Clooney being coerced into reading a scripted statement. In it, she claims the incident with Jay-Z was consensual and the result of alcohol. But forensic analysis shows her body language and eye movement suggest extreme duress. That statement was used to dismiss all charges. The courtroom was breathless. Amal, though not present in court, had submitted an affidavit supporting George's testimony, acknowledging she was forced to lie under threat to her children. Then Kash Patel played an audio clip. Jay-Z's voice, gruff and calm, "Tell George to play nice, or next time those twins won't come back." The jury was visibly shaken. One woman covered her mouth. Another man shook his head in disbelief. Next, Patel presented metadata from Diddy's offshore transactions. Wire transfers labeled consulting fees, $1 million here, $2 million there, sent to names obscured in shell companies. One led back to a firm registered under Clooney's alias account. "Can you explain this, Mr. Clooney?" George looked down, voice cracking. "He paid me to make introductions, to smooth things over, not because I wanted to. Because he threatened Amal again, and I broke. I sold part of my soul to buy time." "What were you facilitating, Mr. Clooney? Access to what? UN officials, political allies, a pipeline into legitimacy. He wanted to look like a man of vision. He was building a gateway into global politics." "What was the truth?" George took a long breath. "He was covering up an arms trafficking ring, using charitable foundations as fronts. And when I found out, he sent another video." The court watched a still image pulled from that file. A masked man holding a photograph of Clooney's twins. Behind him, Amal bound and gagged. The implication was crystal clear. Kash Patel summarized, "This is more than abuse, it's systemic manipulation. Diddy wasn't just a celebrity, he was a threat to global security." The judge recessed for the day. Reporters raced outside. For the first time, Diddy looked nervous, and George Clooney. He remained seated, exhausted, hollow-eyed, but no longer silent. Day 18 of the trial commenced under a fog of anticipation. George Clooney returned to the stand this time, flanked by federal security. His voice remained steady, but his face betrayed the weight of years spent in fear and silence. Kash Patel approached with purpose. "Mr. Clooney, today we want to revisit the night you were attacked, the one that left you hospitalized. Can you walk us through what happened?" George exhaled deeply. "It was November 2014. I was attending one of Diddy's private functions. I had been recording what I could, quietly gathering evidence. But that night I was exposed." "How?" Patel asked. "A camera malfunctioned. One of Diddy's security agents spotted it embedded in my glasses. I was taken away, beaten and drugged. They left me in an alley hours later." The court watched in stunned silence as Patel revealed hospital records from Clooney's stay, internal injuries, toxicology reports, and a blood sample containing an unclassified sedative. The same compound, Patel said, was later found in the bloodstream of Father Marcel. Gasps erupted, but what came next changed everything. Kash Patel played another recording. George Clooney's voice frightened, but deliberate, from a private audio diary. "If this message gets out, I'll either be killed or disappear. This man Diddy has roots deeper than we imagined. He controls people, whole networks. Jay-Z isn't a sidekick. He's the executioner." George looked down, tears welling in his eyes. "And the children. They vanished again, only for hours, but that was enough. A note on my windshield said, 'Imagine what a week would feel like.'" He paused, then added, "Amal begged me to stop. She said it was too dangerous, that our kids were growing up under a shadow they couldn't escape." Patel then introduced the next witness, a former staffer from Roc Nation, Jay-Z's agency. The woman, face blurred for protection, testified remotely. "I saw them plan it, the threats, the abduction. Amal was marked because she threatened to go public. And Jay-Z, he told Diddy, will break her before she breaks us. And the blackmail videos, stored in servers offshore. Clooney's video, the ones of Amal, even footage from secret parties. These weren't secrets, they were weapons." The prosecution then revealed a court order allowing FBI agents to raid one of the identified data centers linked to Diddy's shell company in Luxembourg. The data retrieved included over 200 terabytes of encrypted footage and communications. "This," Patel stated, "is the foundation of what we now call the Celebrity Control Network, a system of manipulation using fame, secrets, and fear." One by one, names were being read in the courtroom. Politicians, executives, even global NGO leaders. Faces once associated with change and hope, now aligned with silence and cover-ups. In a break between testimonies, George sat in the hallway. A journalist approached, asking the question everyone wanted answered, "Why now? Why not years ago?" He looked up. "Because my children finally asked me, 'Daddy, are we safe?' And I couldn't lie anymore." Back in court, Kash Patel played the final clip of the day, audio of a call between Diddy and Jay-Z. "We've got him under control, right?" Jay-Z replied, "For now, but Clooney's not a puppet. He's a fuse, and someone just lit him." The courtroom remained frozen. A pin could drop. Because now everyone knew this wasn't a celebrity scandal. It was a systemic exposure. And George Clooney had just detonated the first charge. By the morning of day 19th, the courthouse was surrounded by protesters, paparazzi, and reporters from around the world. Networks from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East had flown in. People weren't just watching anymore. They were demanding answers. George Clooney entered the courtroom not as a star, but as a man on a mission. His face had aged in mere days, his eyes darkened by sleepless nights and unspeakable memories. Kash Patel stood calm and surgical. "Mr. Clooney, yesterday we learned of what you endured. Today let's speak about what you witnessed." George nodded. "There was a room, hidden, beneath an amusement park. People thought it was urban legend, but it's real. I went there twice." He continued, painting a picture that defied belief. Imagine a vast underground hall, steel walls, no windows, lit only by red lights. There was music, but not like what you hear in clubs. This pulsed, low primal. He paused. And they were all there. Politicians, celebrities, people who shape our world, wearing masks, laughing, watching. Watching what? Patel asked. George clenched his jaw. Human degradation. Vulnerable people are drugged, blindfolded, humiliated, abused. And not just by Diddy. Jay-Z was his second, and sometimes his enforcer. Patel showed the court photos grainy but damning. George had secretly snapped them using hidden tech embedded in his glasses and wristwatch. This isn't blurry security footage, Patel stated. This is direct visual evidence collected by a witness with everything to lose. The jury leaned in, then came the emails. Kash read them aloud. Messages sent from burner accounts tied to Diddy's organization. Amal's time is ticking. Want to see what fear looks like? Check your twin's school gate. Withdraw the complaint or we release the footage. Amal Clooney's statement, filed under seal, was now read aloud with her consent. Her voice, captured in an audio affidavit, echoed through the room. I was told I was drunk. I wasn't. I was told it was consensual. It wasn't. I filed a report, and then I saw the footage they had of our children. I withdrew. Not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. The room fell silent again. Some jurors wiped tears. Even the stenographer paused. Patel turned to the gallery. This isn't about tabloids. This is organized abuse, racketeering, conspiracy, and manipulation of public and legal institutions. George added, and the worst part, this was normalized. They joked about it, as if it was just part of the circle. He named names, senators, tech CEOs, religious figures, one by one under oath with recorded backup. Each name struck like a hammer. Gasps turned to cries. A few audience members stormed out in disbelief. Then Patel produced a video. He warned it was brief and redacted but essential. The screen went black, then static. Then a dim room. Jay-Z mask pulled halfway down speaks into the camera. You cross us, we erase you. Your family, your legacy, your name. Beside him, Diddy smirks. He says nothing, but his eyes, cold and calculating, say enough. George turned to the jury. I was told I had power, influence. But when you stand against this machine, all of that vanishes, unless you do something. Patel concluded the session with a seismic move. We have confirmed the ledger George spoke of. We have matched the signatures using forensic authentication. These weren't forged. They were voluntary. The court adjourned in chaos. Protesters screamed. Reporters fired questions like bullets. But George Clooney walked out in silence, guarded on all sides. Back home, his children slept peacefully. Amal sat in the kitchen, a tea untouched beside her. They won't stop, will they? She asked. No, George whispered, but neither will we. By day 20 of the trial, the world outside the courtroom had turned upside down. Hashtags like Diddy trial, Tor Clooney testimony, and justice for Amal was trending across every platform. Several celebrities distanced themselves from Sean Diddy Combs overnight. Politicians scrambled to erase photos. Charities returned donations. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere was nuclear. The day began with Kash Patel calling his next surprise witness Amal Clooney. No longer hidden behind affidavits or sealed declarations, she took the stand in person. She wore black, no jewelry. Her voice is calm but resolute. I was humiliated, silenced, threatened. But today I choose to speak, not as a lawyer, but as a mother, as a survivor. She recounted the day Jay-Z violated her. It wasn't spontaneous, it was orchestrated, a weapon, used to break George, to force compliance. The room frozen. She continued describing the moment her children vanished. They were gone for 15 hours. I thought I lost them. Then they returned unharmed, but not untouched by fear. There was a note on the doorstep. Next time you won't be so lucky. The defense objected hearsay, but Judge Franklin overruled them. Amal produced the original note and security footage, showing a blacked-out SUV parked across their estate. Next, Kash Patel introduced FBI agent Laura Quinn. She had led the covert surveillance of Diddy's inner circle for over a year. George wasn't our only source, Quinn testified. We had agents embedded. We recorded more than 80 hours of footage from safe houses parties and encrypted messages. Diddy was running a syndicate. She played excerpts. Diddy discussing payments to suppress lawsuits. A tech mogul laughing about deleting metadata. Jay-Z on a call saying, "We own the courts. Who's gonna touch us?" But it was the third video that shattered the silence. Inside a plush lounge, Diddy, clearly intoxicated, says Clooney's weak. Hit the kids next. He'll fold. He always folds. Gasps. The court fell silent again. Amal clutched her hands. George closed his eyes, but Patel wasn't done. He brought out another witness. A former bodyguard of Jay-Z, now under witness protection. His face was blurred, his voice altered. "I was ordered to drug Clooney at that 2014 event. I poured GHB in his drink. I watched them strip him, film him, laugh. Jay-Z kicked him twice, said, 'Welcome to the real world.'" He paused. "I'm ashamed. That's why I'm here." The jury's faces turned pale. Several jurors had tears in their eyes. Patel played one final clip. Diddy, watching a live video feed of Clooney's hospital bed. "Keep him alive," Diddy says. "I'm not done using him." That afternoon, the defense attempted to mount their rebuttal. Diddy's lawyer argued, "This is theater. Clooney's trying to protect his image after helping run illegal arms deals." But Patel produced receipts, documents proving that George had alerted authorities after uncovering the arms trade. A signed confession by Diddy's associate confirmed George was tricked. Then came the smoking gun. Amal handed the court an email from Jay-Z to Diddy. Subject: Amal, she's going to snap. Clooney's talking. We need to shut them both down, make it look consensual. Use the old footage if needed. The courtroom was still. No one dared speak. Outside crowds screamed for arrests. Protesters clashed with Diddy's remaining supporters. The Department of Justice released a statement confirming they were reviewing all evidence and coordinating with international agencies. As George stepped down from the witness stand, his words echoed across the country. "We were told silence was survival, but silence only feeds monsters." The day ended with Judge Franklin announcing the jury would begin deliberations in 72 hours. In a private room, Kash Patel looked at George. "You understand what you've just done?" he asked. George nodded. "I didn't testify to destroying Diddy. I testified to end the system that created him." And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe justice might actually win. The final day of the trial arrived like a storm. Outside the courthouse, a sea of people gathered, some with signs that read, "Justice for all others," with photos of Amal Clooney, and many simply holding candles. The world had waited years for a reckoning, and now it had arrived. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Journalists packed the press box. Security tripled overnight. The court was at maximum capacity. George Clooney entered quietly, flanked by U.S. Marshals. He looked thinner, more weathered but resolute. At his side, Amal. Her presence alone stirred murmurs across the courtroom. Judge Carrington, a no-nonsense federal judge with decades of experience, took his seat. He glanced over the room and then nodded. "Mr. Patel, your closing arguments." Kash Patel stood, hands folded behind his back. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, over the last 19 days you've heard horrors that defy logic, accounts that threaten to shatter our trust in institutions. But here's the simple truth: Sean Diddy Combs did not act alone, but he did lead. He organized, he profited, he destroyed lives." He paused, then continued. "This isn't about celebrity gossip. This is a federal racketeering and abuse case. This is human trafficking, blackmail, and psychological warfare. and it thrived in silence until now. Patel played one final recording. Diddy's voice, barely audible, muttered, "People don't care what's real. They care what they're told is real." Then a second clip, Jay-Z laughing, "Who's gonna stop us, George Clooney?" The room shifted. No one laughed. Patel looked to the jury. "He did stop you, and he brought every one of us with him." Defense attorney Agnifilo stood next. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are not here to judge lifestyle or rumors. We are here to apply the law. Mr. Clooney's emotional testimony is moving, yes, but that doesn't make it evidence. Jay-Z isn't on trial here. And Mr. Combs, despite his fame, is still presumed innocent until proven guilty." He moved closer to the jury. "The videos you saw were redacted. The names were unverified. The threats circumstantial. You cannot convict a man because his enemies are powerful, or because he's unpopular in the court of public opinion." His voice rose slightly. "Don't let emotion cloud justice." Then closing statements ended. Judge Carrington gave final instructions to the jury. "You are to determine guilt based on the facts, not fame, not pressure, not public perception." The jury left. The court recessed. Outside a vigil had formed. Thousands of candles flickered, families embraced. And in the Clooney home, the twins were kept away from the media. Amal sat in silence. George paced. It took only 9 hours. The jury returned. The foreperson stood. In the matter of the United States versus Sean Combs on count 1 racketeering, we find the defendant guilty. On count 2, criminal conspiracy, we find the defendant guilty. On count 3, human trafficking, we find the defendant guilty. On all remaining counts, guilty. Diddy slumped. His legal team sat frozen. Gasps filled the room. Amal clutched George's hand. Judge Carrington hammered his gavel. "Order. Order in this court." He turned to Diddy. "Mr. Combs, you have been found guilty on all charges. Sentencing is scheduled for 30 days from today. Until then, you are remanded to federal custody." As marshals approached, Diddy finally spoke. "This isn't over." George stood, calm, unmoved. "Yes," he replied, "it is." The court adjourned. In the weeks that followed, arrests swept across Hollywood and Capitol Hill. Names George had spoken under oath were subpoenaed. CEOs resigned. Investigations exploded across states. The Clooneys relocated temporarily, escorted by federal protection. Amal resumed her work, this time on an International Human Rights Commission. Jay-Z under investigation. No longer untouchable, the tapes were real. Amal's statement sparked a broader movement. Break the circle. George was offered roles, interviews, even political office. He refused. Instead, he issued a statement, "I don't want a statue. I want safeguards. I don't want sympathy. I want justice for those still silenced." His testimony went viral. Young actors, activists, and survivors came forward in droves. The culture of silence was ruptured. At the sentencing, George and Amal appeared once more. Judge Carrington addressed the court. "Sean Combs exploited power. He violated bodies' trust and laws. He is sentenced to 175 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole." As Diddy was led away, there were no cheers, just silence. Later that evening, back in their countryside home, George tucked in Ella and Alexander. Daddy, Ella whispered, "Is the bad man gone forever?" George paused. "Yes, sweetheart. He can't hurt anyone ever again." And for the first time in years, he believed it.